Alright guys, it's Monday, that means it's time for a Q&A. So the rules are very simple. All you have to do is leave your questions in the comment section below, and hopefully they'll be answered on next week's show. So we're going to kick this week off with a question from Bush Bumper, who says, Q&A, do you think 343 will bring vehicles back to ranked multiplayer in Halo 6? That was one of the biggest problems I had with Halo 5 Arena. It was too MLG for my taste, so much so they stripped most of the goofy fun that Halo is known for out of it. So part of the reason that we don't see vehicles in Halo 5's Slayer is because there's a problem with vehicles in modern day Halo. Now let me explain, okay? So this is kind of a consensus that I've come to on my own, just kind of thinking about why, like what reasons would there be for no vehicles in Slayer? As well as actually talking to pro players like Halo esports players. And basically the problem with vehicles is right now, in past Halo games, the point of a vehicle was it allowed you to get to places quicker. Like the Mongoose on High Ground, I think. Like the reason you'd get on the Mongoose is so you could get your way up that hill quicker. But now, you have sprint, you have thrust, you have clamber, you have all these enhanced mobility things that it's like, why do you need a vehicle? Like, vehicles are pointless now. In fact, it's kind of dumb to get into a vehicle because you're just sitting there out in the open now. Like, Spartans can just thrust out of the way if you try to dodge them. They can sprint. Like, you don't need vehicles in Slayer anymore, and it's ultimately a problem, I think, with the modern Halo gameplay style. And definitely, like, as time has gone on, I've started to dislike Halo 5's gameplay more and more. At first, I was okay with it, but the more that I play it, the more I see, like, what's funny is it's supposed to remove all restrictions from the player. Like, hey, now you can go anywhere, like, be the Spartan and stuff. But sadly, the rest of the game is now suffering because of it. Because now you don't need vehicles anymore, like aiming down the sights. You don't need, like, proper weapon balance. Now automatics are just as good at a long range because now you can just aim down the sights with them and get increased accuracy. I mean, hell, if you crouch and aim down the sights with an assault rifle, it's basically a laser gun. Like, you can outsnipe BRs from a long range with it now. It's pretty ridiculous. And sadly, I think that this problem will not go away as long as Halo's vehicle gameplay stays the same. If 343 insists, like they cannot have it any other way. Halo has to be enhanced mobility. Then the way that vehicles play in Halo Sandbox needs to change. There needs to be some innovations made to the way vehicles play. Otherwise, maybe tone it down a little bit with the enhanced mobility stuff. That way vehicle play can be more of a factor in Slayer. So we're going to move on to the next question, which is from Kevin Cool X. Halo 5 gameplay videos. Q&A, thoughts on Destiny and Destiny 2? I'm excited for Destiny 2, and I'm excited what your thoughts on Destiny 2 and the series are as a whole. Thank you. So, Destiny 1 was a game I was very excited about. I bought it day one, I bought the season pass and everything, and I was burned hard by that game. I heavily dislike Destiny 1. I really dislike it. For me, it's very hard to shake how slimy it was at launch, like how blatantly designed to just take my money it was. Like, it didn't feel like a real video game, it felt like a scam. It felt like it was kind of designed as like a, okay, we've got to find a way to trick him into thinking he's buying a game so that we can take $60 from him, and that feeling never really left me as I played Destiny. Like, I gave the Taken King a try, hoping that it would change things up, but all I saw was, like, supposedly from this new enemy faction, all I saw was they just took regular enemies, they painted them black, and then said it was a new enemy faction and stuff, and obviously the Taken have their own lore reasons, but it felt like for the most part, the reason why the Taken were designed the way they are is so they could save money and not create a new enemy faction with new aliens and stuff. They just created an enemy that was very easy to make because all they had to do was reskin a couple of already existing assets, and most of the Taken King was just retreading already existing areas of Destiny. It felt so cynical and so just, like, it didn't care about me as a player. It just wanted my money right now. And so Destiny left a very bad taste in my mouth. Destiny 2, the reveal, I was a little bit interested in. The story, I don't think looks interesting at all still. I don't think the story looks very interesting. The gameplay, I was surprised at how similar it looks to Destiny 1. Now, I don't mean just artistically. I think if you didn't tell me that the game was a sequel, I would forgive anybody for mistaking it as literally just Destiny 1 DLC, because it looks like they're reusing the exact same assets with little to no difference. Animations are exactly the same. The lighting effects, for the most part, look identical to the first game. It looks like there's barely been an upgrade to the engine, and sadly, the more that we hear from Destiny 2, the less I'm excited, because it's like, okay, number one, PC won't be coming at launch. Number 2, no dedicated servers. Number 3, 30 frames per second on console, which is like a no. No, absolutely not. And just, you know, I'm probably gonna get Destiny 2 on PC if the reviews are good and the PC version doesn't come out like a year later, but so far I'm very disappointed in what I've seen with Destiny 2. It barely looks like an upgrade from Destiny 1, and honestly, you could easily mistake it for just downloadable content for Destiny 1. Like, the HUD is pretty much exactly the same, the UI, the menu and stuff. It just looks like they've rearranged a few assets from the first game and then called it a sequel. It's overall very disappointing. Now, that being said, there are a few upgrades that are being made to Destiny 2 that I am quite interested in. It looks like they're focusing a bit more on the multiplayer component, because Destiny 1's multiplayer felt very, like, it felt very put in last minute to fill a quota. Like, it just felt like, the game needs a multiplayer. Okay, here you go. Like, it didn't feel properly designed or balanced. It felt very sloppy and kind of poorly designed, and it clearly was not the focus of the game. But Destiny 2, the multiplayer, looks like they're putting a bit more focus into it, which is something I'm interested in, because, I mean, like, Destiny's gunplay is a lot of fun. For all of Destiny's faults and problems, the gunplay is not one of them. I think the game plays incredibly well, and so to have a well-designed multiplayer with Destiny gunplay, like, I'm on board. Let's see how it turns out. Also, I think the art style of Destiny is beautiful. The first Destiny, I think, is a gorgeous game, and I'm really happy to see Destiny 2 kind of maintaining that art style, even if graphically they've made no upgrades to the engine. Like, artistically, Destiny 2 looks like Destiny 1, which is okay with me, because Destiny 1's a really beautiful game. And something else that I am also very interested in is the removal of the grimoires, which I'm like, okay, that could be a good thing and a bad thing, because the grimoires, in my opinion, are not necessarily a terrible idea. The issue with the grimoires was that you couldn't open them up in-game. Like, that was a problem, that you had to leave the game to learn Destiny's lore. Now, if the grimoires were in your menu, kind of like Mass Effect's Codex, where you could read about the lore within the game itself, then the grimoires, I thought, would have been fine. They would have been fine. I don't think removing them was the problem. The problem, like, just having them was the problem. I think the problem was just that they weren't in the game. So it's gonna be weird not having grimoires. I'm hoping that the story is able to make up for it, but sadly, what we've seen so far, it's just like, I don't know. It still looks very boring. The characters still don't look that interesting outside of Nathan Fillion's character, but honestly, that's just because it's Nathan Fillion, not because of the character itself. So, I don't know. Destiny 2 is up in the air for me. I want it to impress me, but, you know, we'll see. So the next question is from the Geth Prime Consensus, who says, Q&A. How big of an impact do you think SPV3 made both on the Halo community and 343 Microsoft in general? And do you think that the latter two could appeal to the fans a bit by adding in some content originating from the mod into their future games? Stuff like canonizing the GL weapons, the original Brute weapons, such as the Brute Plasma Pistol, the Shredder, etc., the Shadow Vehicle bringing in the Grizzly into future FPS Halo titles, etc. And on the flip side, do you know that SPV3 wasn't intended to show 343 Industries how they were ruining the franchise by deviating from the classic style of games? Rather, that it was actually supposed to show Bungie how they had been ruining the franchise after Halo 2. Considering how the Bungie we knew back then is effectively dead and buried, would trying to prove something to a dead company be an exercise in futility? So to answer the first part of your question, I think that SPV3 has made a big impact on the community. The community has kind of seen the importance of attention being put into a single player, and even with 343 on their end, I do not think that anything from the mod will show up in future Halo games, just because I don't think 343 wants to give the appearance that they're competing with fan projects, but I do think that that mod probably caused a few discussions to be had at 343, primarily with focusing more on the single player and how you have to take the single player a bit more seriously. You gotta improve the AI, you gotta make them a bit more fun to fight against. The weapons also need to be balanced for the campaign, because sadly Halo 5 didn't really do that. You could tell that a lot of the weapons were balanced primarily for multiplayer. In fact, with some of the campaign team at some kind of talk, some of the 343 guys were saying that the levels were being designed before the gameplay was even finalized. Basically, whatever Quindel Hoyo and his guys were doing with the gameplay for the multiplayer, that affected the rest of the game. Basically, everybody had to just say, okay, we've got to take this new gameplay and see if we can figure out a way to cram it into our game mode. And you can tell the campaign doesn't really play well. Warzone doesn't really play that well. The only game modes that play well are the Slayer game types. And to answer the second part of this question, so SPV3, the point of the mod was just to kind of update Halo Combat Evolved, innovate it, kind of bring it to modern day standards, as well as just like be kind of a love letter to that game by Masters and his team. And SPV3 is pretty damn cool, and Masters actually shares a very controversial opinion. In his opinion, Halo really has not been good since the first game. He and I share the opinion that Halo 2 was not a very good sequel to Halo Combat Evolved, but unlike him, I did actually enjoy future installments in the series, with Halo 3 being my favorite Halo game, but for him, he hasn't really enjoyed a Halo game since Combat Evolved. So for him, it was kind of like a statement to Bungie about the issues with Halo after Halo Combat Evolved, like their design philosophies and stuff. And overall, I do think that SPV3 does bring a lot of interesting mechanics to the table, and I do actually really enjoy his mod. And if the mod was to be kind of like this statement to Bungie that they ruined Halo with Halo 2 and stuff, I don't think it's really like it's pointless to kind of prove a point. For him, it's just like he's proving it to himself that, yeah, his opinion is valid, you know, for him, that Halo 2 was not the sequel he wanted it to be. So for him, he's making this for himself as well as the community who really enjoy Halo Combat Evolved and Halo campaigns, and who want to just see like another good Halo campaign. So the next question is from Alfonso Capo, who says, "This is my first Q&A, so I hope I get lucky. Number 1, how do you think Halo's gameplay should be? I would like it to be like classic gameplay with sprint and no thruster pack, no Spartan or armor abilities, no clamber, no Spartan charge, no ground pound, etc. Why do people hate the Arbiter's new armor? Personally, I think it's not that bad, but it definitely isn't like super awesome nor super bad in my opinion. Do you think that we'll be able to play as Locke and or the Arbiter in Halo 6, or do you think we will just play as Chief? By the way, what do you think about the lack of Chief missions in Halo 5's campaign? And finally, how would you handle Halo 6's story?" So, okay. How I would handle Halo's gameplay going forward is no sprint, at least in Slayer. how I would handle Sprint is as a utility. I do think that Reach was onto something with making Sprint a pickup that you have to get. Like, I mean, hell, Speed Boost is in Halo now. I don't think that Sprint works as a core Halo gameplay mechanic, because Halo's core gameplay and weapon balance and design and everything about the series' gameplay is built around you always being able to engage the enemy, whether you're standing still or moving at max speed. So sprinting and not being able to be a part of the action, that kind of disrupts the flow of combat and creates these awkward pacing issues that are definitely you can see them in Halo 5, where Sprint is designed into the core of the gameplay. And Halo 5, there's a lot of just running to a place, then stopping and shooting, killing the guy, and then running to another place. Like, there's a lot of pacing issues, and it feels very janky with the way that it plays. But for me, how I would design a classic, or like Halo 6, is no sprint, but funny enough, I would actually keep the thruster pack. I do think the thruster pack is a very interesting idea, and visualize just like Halo 3, like High Ground or something, but you have Halo 5's thruster pack, where, you know, every few seconds you can thrust to the left, right, forward, or backwards. I think that that could actually create some interesting gameplay encounters. I would remove clamber, but what I would do is put a bit more focus on crouch jumping, because my problem with clamber is that it is a never ever miss a jump button. That's essentially what it is. Like, people say, but clamber's still, crouch jumping is still in the game. It is, but there's no reason to ever do it, because clamber is so much better. I mean, with clamber, you don't even need to be near the ledge. All you have to do is press the A button, and your Spartan automatically grabs the ledge and vaults himself up. There's really no strategy involved, and there is zero room for error. And the thing about Halo 5 is its gameplay is incredibly liberating, but there does need to be punishments for poor choices made. Like, if you miss a jump, that should be on you. There shouldn't be like a, no, let me try again button, you know? No, if you missed the jump, you missed the jump. That's why I would put more of a focus on crouch jumping, because that actually has a room for error, because it doesn't magnetize you to the ledge and automatically hoist yourself up for you. Aiming down the sights obviously would be gone. I'd put a aiming down the sights animation over scoped weapons, like, you know, and you bring it up to your eye level. But for automatics and stuff, no aiming down the sights for those. That's not Halo's gameplay. And I would definitely remove the accuracy buffs that aiming down the sights gives you in Halo 6. But yeah, so to answer your question about the Arbiter's new armor, personally, I'm a fan of it. I think it looks really cool. That's just me. I think he looks pretty cool. I like the spines going down his back. I like the gold. I think it looks really cool. I mean, that might be just me, but I don't have a problem with it. To answer your question about if we're going to be playing as Locke or Arbiter in Halo 6, here's what I think. About 40% of me believes that they're going to go the Halo 3 route and have Player 2 play as Locke, Player 3 play as Arbiter, and Player 4, I don't know, who cares? Like, but Player 1 will always be Master Chief. I don't think that we're going to see a lot of extra characters in Halo 6. I think that they're really going to sideline a lot of people and put more of a focus on Master Chief. You know, for good or for bad, because in my personal opinion, I do not think that the lack of Master Chief in Halo 5's campaign was the problem. The problem was that the replacements were not interesting at all. And finally, how would I handle Halo 6's story? Honestly, I wouldn't take it as seriously. I'd have some humor, I'd have some fun, I'd make it as big and as loud and as dumb as possible. I would just make it a gigantic fan servicey action. Like, basically, I would make sure that the story had the coolest levels possible and went out of its way to make you feel like a badass, because right now, emotionally, I do not care about Halo's story right now. the stupid created. I don't care. I think they're terrible and stupid, and I do not care about upcoming conflicts in the Halo series if they are going to be a part of it. The Prometheans, I don't care. I don't care. You know, Cortana and Chief's like, oh, but it's so, like, no, don't care. Don't care at all. So for Halo 6's story, I just focus on making it as badass and as cool as possible and setting up the coolest levels in the Halo series ever, because I don't care. I don't have any emotional investment. And so it's kind of like with Halo 3. With Halo 3, it went out of its way to try to be as cool as possible, you'd notice. I mean, the flood on Earth, like assaulting 2 scarabs at once. Like, the story set up these moments where it was very clear that they were trying to make you feel as awesome as possible by giving you the coolest levels and the coolest set pieces ever. And that's just what I do with Halo 6. And finally, we are going to close this off with a question from that guy across the street, who says, Halo Q&A. Do you think a Horde mode like Left 4 Dead or Call of Duty Zombies would be good for Halo? Personally, I'd love to see a Halo a flood survival mode in the style of Firefight. It ends when everyone dies. I'd also like a feature so that you can get infected and turn on your teammates and kill them. So this is a question I have seen a lot, especially by Hidden Xperia. In my opinion, Horde modes in Halo are a very interesting subject, because Halo is definitely a game that was designed to be its most fun when you're on the move. Halo isn't very fun when you're stationary or where you're being restricted to a certain area. And so a Horde mode where you have to defend your position, that would be very interesting. Reach's Firefight, in my opinion, was cool, but nothing that I would sink hours and hours and hours into. I liked Reach's Firefight primarily because of all the custom games options and stuff, and it was good fun with friends, but as a Horde mode, I didn't take it as seriously because it does get quite boring after a while, and that's primarily just because Halo's gameplay was designed for you to be on the move. It wasn't designed for you to sit still. And ODST's Firefight I did think was a little bit more fun, and that's primarily because of the gameplay changes, but even ODST's Firefight had, you know, a few issues of, okay, this is starting to get a little bit boring, with, you know, a Halo 5's Firefight being really not that fun. But Halo 5's Firefight was onto something where it's like completing secondary objectives as you fight off waves of enemies and stuff, which I do think if I were to design a Horde mode, I would design it similar. If you guys have ever heard of Call of Duty Ghosts Extinction mode. Essentially, you're working your way through a map, and basically what happens is you have this drill with you. And the drill you have to set up on these alien hives. And whenever you set up the drill, dozens of aliens suddenly come and try to attack you to defend their hive. And then once the hive is done and the drill has destroyed it, you get a moment of peace where you can run around the environment, get ammo and stuff, and drag the drill to the next hive. And that's kind of how I would design Halo's gameplay. I mean, obviously not that tedious, but you have to be on the move. You're trying to accomplish something, whether it's infiltrating some kind of base to try to get secrets, and as you get deeper and deeper into the base, the enemies you encounter are harder and more difficult to fight against. That's how I would design it, like kind of a get in, get out, mission accomplished type of game mode. And ultimately, that brings us to the end of the Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed, so leave your questions in the comment section below. Hopefully they'll be answered next week. And guys, I hope you have a good Monday.